I just want to like read so many quotes to you because the writing is just beautiful. Like if you just, I'm sure you're here because you just want a recap of the book without having to read it so that you can read the sequel, but her writing is so beautiful. And there's just so many little Easter eggs all throughout this book.
Okay, you guys, I don't know if this is going to be my intro or if I'm going to do a separate one, but this is my first in my When the Moon Hatched reread reading vlog. I'm preparing for the Ballad of Falling Dragons coming out in just a few weeks. And if you know me, if you've been around this channel at all, you'll know that I absolutely love this book. I'm obsessed with this book. When I first read it, I was absolutely obsessed, and I reread it again, like just a few days after I finished it. So, but since that time, I haven't read it, and it's been calling my name, but I really wanted to read it closer to the release so that I could be like really fresh on the details. But this is going to be a really special vlog because not only am I going to be reading this book, but I got to meet Sarah Parker at the end of 2024 in Salt Lake City. And she signed some books for me, and she's like the nicest person. She and her husband are like the nicest people, so down to earth. And she signed several books for me, but I had her sign one for my best friend who also loves this book. And as a gift to her, I am annotating the book. My original copy is totally annotated. It's like a When the Moon Hatched Bible, okay? She likes the idea of annotating, but can't actually bring herself to do it. And so as a gift, I wanted to annotate it for her so that when she rereads it, things will click and she'll have like the When the Moon Hatched Bible that I have. So I have started, and it's really hard to tell. Unfortunately, these tabs that I got, they look like different shades on the paper, but once you peel them off and put them in the book, it's a lot harder to tell. You can only tell when you're on the actual page where you can kind of see the shade. But anyways, I have started, and I started my key here in the front of the book. So I have all the tabs, and basically what I'll be annotating is the world building and magic system, foreshadowing, because I realized that she does so much foreshadowing in this book, and I wanted to go back and read it when I read it the first time, the second time, my second read of this book. I wanted to go back through and look for foreshadowing specifically, and there was so much of it that I noticed on my second read, and so this time I wanted to clock the foreshadowing on this reread. And then, of course, I have love. So like all of the little important annotations about the love story. And then just good quotes that are just, good quotes regardless of the context. And then character development. So like specific things to remember about specific characters. And that way, if I want to go back through and remember something specific about a character, if I noticed a character trait throughout my read that I thought might be important, I will mark it. And then if it comes back to me later, I'm like, wait, who had this color of eyes or this or that? I can go back and use my annotations to see it. So what I want to say is that rereading it this time is a completely different experience, because the first two times I read this book was in 2024, and that was before Trump became president again. And now rereading this book after the last year and a half with Trump as our president, it's like a completely different experience. Definitely some parallels. It is so much more apparent because King Vhagar in this book he's a tyrannist. He is a dictator. He is obsessed with his own power, with himself. And that is exactly what we're experiencing in America right now. And a lot of the toxic systems that he set up in the book can be drawn, we can draw parallels to toxic things that are happening in our country and toxic systems that our president has set up. And so it just hits home even more than it did before, which it hit home the first time. I mean, this book is a God tier book for me, 6-star book. Okay. And again, on this reread, it's taken me this long to check in with you all because I'm just devouring it. I am just eating this book up. And even though it's really late here and I need to go to bed because I have to work tomorrow and my kids have to go to school and I have to take my son to a doctor's appointment, I don't want to stop. It's taken me, I'm on page 82. It's taken me 82 pages to pull myself away and chat with you guys. I just love this book so much. Now, this is not going to be a spoiler-free vlog. This is going to be full of spoilers. My intention with this book is to have my own log of this book and pointing out, details and foreshadowing and different things that I want to remember so that when book number 3 comes out, I can go back and listen to my own vlog and refresh myself if I don't want to read it again. Although because I love it so much, it's very likely I will read it again for a 4th time. But my goal here is for those of you who don't want to reread it, but you need a refresher, that hopefully this will help refresh your memory so that going into Ballad of Falling Dragons, you are feeling refreshed and ready to go and have the details that you need to make sense of the sequel. Okay, so Just know, proceed with caution. From this point forward, there will be spoilers. So this is your chance. If you don't want spoilers, this is your chance to click away, go read the book, and come back to me after you've read it. Okay? And I will also share my thoughts along the way. There is so much in these 82 pages. It's so much. There's so much world building, but I love this world and it's totally worth it. So I'm just going to go over the things that I think are important to remember in the world building. So in the beginning, there was nothing. Kalis is the god of Aether, which is just like space, matter. And then Kalis is like, we need to fill this space with things. There are different gods, elemental gods. So the god of Aether, the god of wind, the god of fire, the god of water, the god of fire. Did I say fire? And basically, they decided to fill this space with creation. The greatest creation of all was dragons. And these dragons, when they died, would fly up and curl up and harden and become a moon in the sky. Okay, so let's go over a few details about the dragons. So it says here on page 3, many beings filled all corners of the world, but none the creators were more proud of than the great winged beasts that lorded over the sky, the dragons. So the saber scythes, they live in Gondrog. Then we've got the molten maws. They found their home in the Fade. They have honed beaks that are sharp. They have slashing claws. They have veiled feathers that are colorful, and no two molten maws have the same like color palette. And then we have the moon plumes, whose home was in Netherin. And Netherin is thought to be like impossible to raid. It's the furthest place from the sun. The moon plumes have leathery skin so chilled to the touch that's luminous, with long silky tails and eyes a crush of glitter and ink. And of course, they live in like the snow and the ice. It's the furthest place from the sun, so it's very cold. It's like probably like Antarctica is the best parallel we could draw in our world, or the North Pole. Okay. Other creatures, other beings, they want to steal eggs. People want to tame the dragons. They want to dominate over them. And so they attempt to steal dragon eggs so that they can have a dragon for themselves, but very few succeed. The ones that do use their dragons to, wage wars, to get power. But it's rare. Not very many people are able to successfully steal a dragon egg. And then it says the creators didn't expect their beloved beast to sail skyward upon their end, to plant themselves just beyond gravity's grip, curling into balls and calcifying, littering the skies with tombstones, with the moons. They certainly did not expect those moons to fall not long after they found their lofty perch, for them to collide with the world in a clash of splintering doom that threatened to devastate everything that had come to be. It took 7 moonfalls before Claude, Rain, Ignos, and Boulder realized Kalis was to blame, that his empty space, which yearned to be filled, was strong enough to displace a dragon from its resting place and rip it from the sky. These moon plumes, at the end of their lives, are flying up into the sky, defying gravity, curling up, turning into these moons, but shortly after, they're falling and crashing. So these moons are falling and crashing into their planet and risking all of the life that's on that planet. And it took 7 moonfalls for the other gods to realize that Kalis, the god of Aether, who wanted his space to be filled so badly, he's drawing these dragons up into the sky. Like he's drawing them into the Aether, into his space, because he wants his space to be filled. But it's a problem. It threatens the world and everyone on it. And then we meet Rave, who is our FMC, who's a baddie. I love Rave. I also love Khan. We'll get to him. Rave is an assassin who was basically in jail, was in a cell. And we don't know that much about her background. But what we know is this powerful serpent, or like head of an organization called the Fleur de Ath. She is in a very powerful position. She basically rescued Rave from a jail cell by using a blood oath, which bound Rave to her and gives her some control over her, and then trained her as an assassin and basically sends her out on errands for the agency. And Rave is really good at what she does, but she also is very compassionate, and she cares about the minorities of the world. She sees the hungry and the poor and the destitute, and she wants to help them. Now, Rave is undercover as a null. So there's different types of people. Different people are born with different gifts of being able to hear the different gods. So they kind of identify with like the god of fire or the god of wind or whatnot. Rave has the ability to commune with the god of the wind, Cloud, but she is undercover as a null, and a null is basically like a human who has no special gifts, has no magic power, cannot commune with the gods. And these, depending on like what your gift is and what your socioeconomic status is, You are marked in your ear with a chip if you're a null. If you can commune with the gods, you have a bead on your hair that indicates which god you can communicate with. And if you have more than one god that you can commune with, you might have multiple beads. And these beads show by what color they are and how they're worn what your magical gift is. But again, Rave is an assassin, so she's undercover. She appears as a null, even though she can in fact commune with Claude, the god of wind. In order to not constantly be dominated by Claude's voice, she wears an iron ring. Iron is like the antithesis to the gods. So as long as the people have iron on them, it interrupts the connection between the god and the person. And it gives them a little bit more freedom, right? Every time she takes the ring off, she's got Claude in her head, and she is very dominated by the god's personality and desires and wishes. And yeah, it's hard to function. So she wears this iron ring, but she needs to be able to take it off whenever she wants to commune with the gods and kind of tap into that power. So we know that that iron is really important, a really important element, I guess, that interrupts the magic of the gods. And then we know that Rave is going on these assassination missions for this agency, which is basically like a revolt against the king. It's a underground rebellion against the king. However, she's also doing her own little separate missions to help these other minority groups. And the agency funds these passion projects because they need Rave to commit the assassinations for their own agenda. So they kind of do it to humor her, right? And then lastly, let's remember that she is bloodbound to Sareem. And that means that Sareem wears this vial around her neck, and it contains Rave's blood with a rune on it. And every time she does anything to that vial, like scrapes it or does something to it, it basically has a physical effect on Rave. And she uses this to control her. At the part I'm at right now, Rave is fed up. She is fed up with being controlled, and she doesn't want to do the agency's bidding anymore. She wants to go about this rebellion her own way. She has her own thoughts about how this should be done, and she wants to help the people in her own way. And so she basically just given the finger to Sareem and said, go ahead, try to torture me through the vial, but I've had enough. I'm not doing what you asked me to do. Now, we also know that a bounty hunter has just come into town. This bounty hunter works for the king. He flies on a dragon, and he has never lost a bounty. So every time he's gone out to get someone on a bounty, he has always succeeded. And there is a bounty on Rave's head and on this agency's head, the Fur de Ath, because of the rebellion that they've built up against the king. So Sareem is telling her she needs to lie low, and Rave thinks, no, I just need to go kill him. I just need to go kill this bounty hunter who is named Rek. Also, you guys, there's so much world building in the very beginning, but these are the things that I think become important later. So we also witness the Molten Claws coming to a Colosseum where a bunch of gnolls are, and they are being sacrificed to these dragons as live feed. We see these Molten Claws attack and grab people out of the Colosseum that have been offered by the other people who have more power, and they are being taken back to these dragon eggs, to the new dragons that have just hatched, as feed for the baby dragons to grow. So obviously that's important. And we also know that the King Vager, who's the tyrant, he is building up a military, and he is basically taking kids off the street, null kids, gifted kids, and he is doing something to their brains, and he's basically forcing them to work in his military, but he's destroying their ideology and destroying their brains and making them loyal to him and his cause. So Rave does not like this, and she wants to stop it, and she has a personal mission to get involved and save these kids who are being taken by the government, by the king, by the royalty. So that's kind of where we're at. I need to go to sleep. I want to keep reading, but I need to go to sleep. So if I think of anything else, I'll update you guys in the morning. And then tomorrow I will be listening to this book as I work and annotating as I go. And I'll do my best to keep you all updated and keep on top of the things that I think will be important for the sequel. I have a feeling I forgot things, but we'll see. All right, you guys. Good morning. Okay, I did go to sleep last night, and then this morning I had to do mom duties, get kids off to school, etc. My son had a doctor's appointment. All of that is done now, and I am going to be working the rest of the day. So I've been listening to the audiobook, but then I'm still annotating as I go. When I get to a part of the book that I'm I want to mark that, I want to remember that, then I just stop and update the book. So just kind of carry the book around with me, even if I'm not physically reading it, because I'm constantly, writing notes and all of that. So as you can see, We have quite a few annotations. There's just so much. So it just makes it easier to go back and refer to. Let me tell you where we're at. We are at the beginning of chapter 19. So we are 147 pages in. You guys, I just love this book so much. This is my third time reading it and I just don't want to put it down. I haven't been able to stop. It even took me a minute to get on here and update you all because I didn't want to like stop and do an update because I just want to keep reading. But alas, here we are. There's so much information. I knew I could not go on without updating you guys. So I think where we left off was that Sareem told Rave that she needs to lie low, that Rek is in the area who's a bounty hunter and he's going after their agency, their secret Fjordath agency. We get introduced to Rave's home life at the moment. She lives with her friend Essie. They're basically like roommates and friends and they work together. And she cares about Essie, but she's very closed off, so she doesn't share that very openly. And we get introduced to the Larks, which is part of the magic system. It's honestly one of my favorite parts. I just love it. I love that she came up with this. So they're basically paper birds, paper cranes that are used to send messages. And so you can send messages to people on a piece of paper, fold it into its crane, send it on its way, or not crane, it's larks. Fold it into the lark, the paper lark, send it on its way. It knows where to go. It goes to the right person as long as you have it addressed to the right person. And then the responder can fold it back in a way that it activates this like response line, and then it will go back to the person who originally sent it. So we find out that Rave has this pet lark, which is basically this like paper lark that came to her accidentally, or she thinks it's accidental. We find out later it's not accidental. She's named it Nee because it just has 3 letters on the outside of the lark, N-E-E, and inside it says, what does it say? See, this is why I have the annotations. It says, I need you. She basically has kept this little lark as a pet because she just presumed that it came to the wrong place. And so she's never responded to it. And it just kind of sticks around and flies around occasionally and bangs into things. And anyway, it's kind of funny. But she sees Essie and Essie is making her a diamond tooth, I think, that's going to activate a weapon that Rave can carry. Anyway, Essie's making weaponry, magical weaponry for Rave. And she needs some materials from the Undercity. And Rave has not gotten them. And Rave promises she will get them, but she tells Essie, do not go to the Undercity anymore. Like, just don't go there. I will get the stuff. It's not safe. And then later, Rave wakes up to a loud thud. And she goes upstairs where Essie is and finds her severely injured and dying from a wound. And she has a few moments to talk to her before she passes away. And she says it was a guy who was hooded. He smelled like leather and smoke. And, it's a very touching, a very sad moment. It's like Rave has been burying her vulnerability for so long. She's scared to love or to share how she feels about someone because she keeps losing people. Now she's losing Essie. But in this moment, she's able to tell her that she loves her and find out details about who did this to her. And it turns out that it happened when she went to the Undercity. So Ray feels some guilt and responsibility because she didn't go get the supplies that Essie wanted her to get. And so she went on her own and now she's dead. You guys, the sun is the light is massively changing. Okay, my camera adjusted. Anyways, so Rave burns everything down, their whole house. But before she does, she takes the knife that was left in Essie's wound and sees that there's a message on it for her to meet the killer in the Undercity. And she knows that it's Rek based on the initials. And she becomes so angry about losing Essie and about Rek killing her that this icy rage takes over. And in the book, it's just described as just this icy, dark, rage that just takes over her entire body. And suddenly she's overtaken by the other. And we are introduced to the other, who is a female. We don't know much about the other, except that she is monstrous. She is uninhibited. She is carnal. She is animalistic. And when this rage takes over within Rave, the other takes over. And so the other comes forward and is now in charge of everything that Rave is doing. And she hunts down Rek and she kills a bunch of soldiers along the way. And eventually she is shot with an iron bullet, which deactivates the other. And Rek has arrested Rave, and Rave is coming to and realizing, oh, it's happened again. I I've been blacked out, and while I've been blacked out, I've done things. There's blood all over her, and she has no memory of it. She has no idea what's been happening. And she thinks she's going to be taken to be fed to the dragons, but Rek offers her a deal, and he says, you give me information, and I won't send you off to be dragon food, basically. And as much as Rave is upset about Sareem and the blood oath and everything related to that, she feels a sense of loyalty to Sareem, so she doesn't want to give her whereabouts up. So she basically says, like, no way, not happening, F you, you know? Meanwhile, we're also going back and forth between present day and then some journal entries. So these journal entries or diary entries come from, I'm so sorry about the lighting, you guys. The sun keeps going behind the clouds, and yeah, I'm on natural lighting, so it is what it is. But these diary entries are written by Elwyn Nevan, who is 9 phases or 9 years old. And Elwyn has an older brother who has left to go find a moon plume egg. He hasn't come back, and she decides to go find him, and that she wants to steal her own dragon egg. And when she gets there, she finds that Hadian is not doing well. He's sick. He's not doing well. Seems like he's dying. He did get a dragon egg, but he isn't able to go home because he's in really bad shape. And the dragon egg has to stay out in the open until it hatches. But once it hatches, she can take the hatchling and go hide in like a cave. So she's just out in the open with Hadian and this dragon egg. There's a pack of, I think they're called doom quills or something like that. I think they're essentially like wolves, like a pack of wolves that are kind of like circling them. They can tell that they are injured and that this is fresh meat, you know, so they're threatening to attack. And then they've got the moon plume mama who wants her baby, you know, and is very protective and is threatening to, you know, cause harm should she find them. And so this is kind of where we're left off with this diary entry. But Elwyn says that whether she gets the egg or not, she is not going home. She doesn't say why yet, but that is not going to happen. We also find out while Rave is kidnapped or held in detention by the bounty hunter by Rek, that he is aware that she is not a null, and he can sense that she has dual beads. So she has 2 connections with the gods. And let me just, straight from the book, read to you the description of the moon plume egg, because this is going to become important later on. So she says, I've never seen another moon plume that's such a metallic shade of gray. So this is like a very unique color, and it matches the egg that they are holding on to. And then she says, Hadian's not doing well. I'm trying to protect this egg. The doom quills. The doom quills are surrounding us, and I'm holding Hadian's dragon scale dagger, and I hope I don't have to use it, but I will, you know, if push comes to shove. She says, I don't like the thought of killing things. I don't want to kill anything. I really hope they don't get too close. Very ironic, very interesting, right? Because we know where this is going with the journal entries, and we know who is writing these journal entries. So I find that very interesting little tidbit. Okay, so I am starting off on chapter 19 now, and we'll be going forward, and I will give you guys an update soon. I think I've told you guys the most important parts. Oh, one last thing. Before she burns the house down with Essie in it, she takes the knife and she opens her lark, and for the first time ever, she responds and she writes, no, you don't. So the message says, I need you. Her response says, no, you don't. And then she seals the activation line to send the lark back to the original sender. So her pet lark that she's had for over 5 years now has a message and is going back to the original sender, and she has no idea who that is. So that will come back to us as well. Chapter 19, getting started, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay, you guys, I'll be back with more details, but we're at the part where Khan comes, but we don't know he's Khan yet, right? We know in hindsight. But Khan comes and he's hunting Moonshard, and he finds Rave in the prison cell, and he breaks her out essentially and has a conversation with her, and he realizes she is for sure who he thinks she is. And they have a bunch of banter, and he calls her Moonbeam, which she's like, that's not my name, but you know, it's like a term of endearment. Like, it's so sweet. Like, he's so happy to have found her. And then they kind of banter, and in their banter, she says something like, then you can go on hunting Moonshards. And he says, I don't need to anymore. I found the most important one. And the most important piece is in like a precarious position right now. Essentially saying she is the main piece of Moonshard that he's looking for. So yeah, I just love them. And I love Khan. He's my book boyfriend. So yeah, I'll be back with a lot more details and updates, but I just love that chapter so much. I am just falling in love with this book all over again.
Okay, you guys. Next day, the amount of discipline it has taken for me to stop reading and go to sleep and stop reading and give you guys updates is next level. I just don't want to stop. Like, I remember that I read this book so fast the first time and the second time, and I probably would be done with this book by now if I wasn't stopping to like do updates. And also my kids are here this week, so I've also had to do a lot of mom stuff. We've been really busy with like kid activities and dinner and bedtime and all that stuff. And when they are at their dad's house, I have a little bit more time, a little bit more flexibility to read. Otherwise, I'd be done with this third reread by now because I cannot stop. I am like addicted, and it makes me so happy because I know that I can read this book over and over again and find little bits and pieces that are new that I appreciate. It's like your favorite movie. You know, you can watch it over and over again, and it just gets better and better with time. This book just gets better and better with time. I feel like this is a book I will reread over and over and over again for the rest of my life. I know my expectations are like way up here. I'm trusting Sarah to deliver. I'm trusting her to deliver because I need the rest of this series to be as good as this first book, because I need another series besides Throne of Glass that I can reread for the rest of my life and just devour. You know what I'm saying? It is next level. So we are just about halfway through the book. A tiny bit less. I'd say we're probably like 45% of the way through the book, maybe. Or like 48% of the way through the book. Anyways, that doesn't really matter. The point is that I finally tore myself away from it so that I could update you all. Okay, so where we left off is that she has like come to, the other has gone back into the background. Now Rave is back in charge of her body. She doesn't really know exactly what happened, but she knows she did damage. And Rek is trying to get her to give up Sareem, but she won't. And she asks how he found her. Like, how did he track her down? And he basically says that he put a tracking rune on the note that Levy, if you'll remember clear back at the beginning of the book, she goes and sings at the club where she's going to assassinate the one guy, and she runs into Khan. And she ends up performing on stage with this girl, Levy. And at the end, she offers her this orb, which I guess gives her away. I'm not sure I fully understand the orb thing yet. I can't remember. I can't remember what the orbs are. But she gives her an orb. Somehow it gives her away. And Levy sends her with her information, like, hey, if you ever want to sing together again, here is my contact information. But it's actually like laced with a tracking rune. And that is how Rek found her. So now she won't make a deal, and she's going to be punished. And so he flays her back open. He whips her until she is in terrible shape. I mean, it's so bad that she passes out, okay? And now she's waking up in a tiny little cell, alone, bloody, in pain, and trying to figure out what to do. And she's told by the other prisoners that she's now going to trial. So she's going to trial with all of these noblemen. It's basically all the like rich people who have more than one bead, who are able to like commune with several of the creators. And so they have like a higher status. They're basically like the judgment panel. And she's going to trial, and her options will either be to be strung up and quartered, so like her body ripped apart, which is like a really awful old medieval practice, or she'll be thrown into the Colosseum for the dragons, the dragon pit. So while she's waiting to stand trial, she's talking to the other prisoners, and there's a woman there who's a truth teller, a truthsayer, who wouldn't give up the gifted kids on the street. The government was forcing truthsayers to basically let them know if kids were telling the truth about their gifts so that they could recruit the right people for the military. They want the most powerful, the ones with the gifts, right? If you remember. And this woman, she refused to do that. She was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not like giving up innocent kids. And so they jailed her. She also is next to a little boy. And you guys, I'm sorry, my cats, I don't know why they decided right now they have the zoomies. So if you hear little bells or like racing crazy noises, and sometimes they crash into things, my cats are playing tag. So also my throat is scratchy because it's allergy season. I mean, I have really terrible spring allergies. So it just is what it is. Just gonna do my best. So the other prisoner in the cell is Rook, who's a little boy who basically works for like a ring on the street where they send kids out to steal things. So he is there, and he has been trying to dig a hole in the ground to escape. So he's like working on this hole. And Rave is getting information from these people. This is how she finds out she's standing trial and why they are there. And when they come to give her a meal, she gives the meal to the little boy. Like, he is like skin and bones. And she's like, you need it more than I do. She knows that her destiny is to die. So she's just like, this is not going to do me any good. I'm going to die anyway. Give it to this little boy who hopefully has a future in front of him. While she's awaiting trial, this hooded man comes down into the cells and he starts talking to the little boy and he's like, hey, I heard that you have something I'm looking for and we don't know it yet, but turns out it's Khan. And he is talking to this boy and he says, I heard you stole a moon shard. I heard that you have a moon shard. I'm hunting down these specific moon shards. And so they're having a conversation and he suddenly notices Rave and he's like, it's that girl again. And she's like, it's that guy again. He's like, come into the light. And she's like, come and get me. Like, the banter between them, there's so much chemistry. It feels like enemies to lovers because they think they're enemies in the beginning. Well, Rave thinks they're enemies in the beginning. And he realizes that she is who he thinks she is. And also that she's been badly whipped and she's in really bad shape. And also that she's on trial to die. When he realizes it's her, he calls her Moonbeam. It's like one of my favorite parts in the book. And I vlogged that moment because I was just like, oh gosh, I love it. This is one of my favorite fantasy couples of all time. And like, Khan is my favorite, like, he's my fantasy boyfriend. He's the only one that I've ever been like, oh, he is my book boyfriend. That is Khan. So he calls her Moonbeam and she's like really confused, but she feels this strange connection to him. She feels this strange sense of familiarity and she's like attracted to him. She's attracted to his scent. Now, I notice a lot throughout the book that they talk about smell and scent a lot. It is a theme and I'm clocking that. I'm clocking it. It might be because they're fae and they have heightened senses and so they can hear really well and they can smell really well, traditionally. So it might just be that that is a heightened sense for them. We're watching it, okay? We're watching it. Before they can finish their conversation, Reg comes down and he's like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. He pretends to be a healer, saying that he was told he needed to come and heal and tend to Rave's back after she had this really severe whipping. And essentially he finds out she is scheduled to go to trial and die. Like they're gonna kill her one way or another. So they have an exchange. It's very like full of chemistry and this unspoken like recognition. He has no idea how she's there. And she has no idea who he is and what her relationship is to him. And then the real healer comes down. They're called Roonies. The real Rooney comes down and refers to him as sire. And they're all like, what? You're a king? And that is when it is revealed that the hooded man is a king. So in this world, we have 3 kingdoms, the Shade, the Fade, and the Burn. And a Vaegor brother rules each one. And so Rave knows that the king of the Fade is Kadok Vaegor, and she's seen him before from a distance, but she knows that this is not King Kadok. The Shade is rumored to be ruled by King Tyroth Vaegor, who's a cruel king with a heart said to fester from the loss of his queen. And then the Burn is supposed to be ruled by King Khan, who is savage and bloodlusting, who has a giant ancient saber scythe named Raigun, who is like the biggest saber scythe dragon that anyone's ever seen. So everyone is like scared of his saber scythe. So she doesn't know which king he is. She doesn't know if he's Tyroth or Khan, but either way, she doesn't want to bow to any of them. She doesn't want to have anything to do with any of them. Then she goes to trial. She doesn't even try to defend herself. She's just like, yep, I did it. Yep. And sucks for you guys. She's accepted that she's going to die. And at this point, she feels that being quartered would be more humane than being fed to dragon babies. So take what you will from that, but I would think it would be the other way around, but no. She would rather be quartered. So the nobles are voting on how she's going to die. And she notices that this hooded figure, this hooded man again, the king, he is amongst them. And they're taking a vote and everyone votes for her to be quartered, including herself. That's how she wants to die. And then the king votes for the dragon pit and his vote supersedes everyone else's. So the chancellor's like, all right, dragon pit it is. And she's like, what the hell? Can I at least have a say in how I want to die? And like, why are you insisting that I go to the dragon pit? Okay. She's scared. Like she finally admits that she's scared, but she's ready. And she's mostly just pissed that she can't get vengeance. Okay, my camera ran out of memory, so I just had to switch. So while she's waiting to die, basically, while she's waiting to go to the Colosseum, to the Dragon Pit, she is facing her death and she's going through her regrets and trying to come to terms with it and
She's really pissed that she won't be able to take vengeance for Essie, but she is nervous about dying. She's nervous about suffering through this death. And so in chapter 25, it says, "My foot taps against the floor while I hum soft and slow, Ballad of the Fallen Moon, whipping through the otherwise eerily silent cells." So she's in the prison humming a song called the Ballad of the Fallen Moon. And I think this is significant because the title of the sequel is The Ballad of Falling Dragons. And the dragons are moons in the sky, so I just feel like this is definitely some foreshadowing here. And while she's sitting there humming this song, which by the way is also the same song she sung on stage with Levy at the very beginning of the book. Okay, so we're noticing a theme here. Suddenly, Khan shows back up. King Khan shows back up. She's calling him the incognito king because she has yet to know which king he is. She just knows he's been walking around with a hood over his head, being very, secretive, okay? He shows up with a Rooney. They sneak her out of her cell and down a tunnel, and they take her to a healer. And he says, we're going to heal your back. She's like, what are you even doing? Why are you even wasting time on this? I'm going to die tomorrow. This is stupid. But nonetheless, he takes her to this healer. And he's like, at least you don't have to be in pain while you're waiting to die. And this is how he convinces her. So she's brought to this healer named Bia, I think. Bia. And she realizes that this healer is actually a dragon, what are they called? A dragon seer. She's a healer with dragon sight. And basically she can see beyond wounds. She can see mental and emotional wounds. She has the capacity to see the whole of the person and not just what is on the surface, not just the physical wounds. And so when she's going to heal her back, she is also going to heal a lot of this trauma, if Rave will allow her to, that she has been through in the past. But she keeps her confidence. She doesn't say anything in front of Khan, but she says the damage is more extensive than I was expecting, referring to the fact that Rave has more wounds, these other invisible wounds inside. And she says, I can try to heal this, but in order to heal her, she will need to relive the pain. She will have to go through it. She will have to process all of these wounds, which will inflict pain on her. So she has to choose whether or not she's going to do this. And Khan's like, she can do it. And Rave is like, what is he doing? Why does he even care? He's basically it's up to you. I'm not going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. Rave thinks about it and she decides, yes, let's go ahead and go through with the healing. I will face the pain. I can do this. I just want to read so many quotes to you because the writing is just beautiful. I'm sure you're here because you just want a recap of the book without having to read it so that you can read the sequel, but please just at some point reread this book, whether it's for the third one or the fourth one or after the series is complete. But it's just, her writing is so beautiful. And there's just so many little Easter eggs all throughout this book that I can't possibly cover them all in this video. I'm going to do my best, but I know that I will not get everything. And there might even be Easter eggs that I haven't picked up on yet. So anyways, so now remember, we're also flipping back to these diary entries. And now we're seeing diary entries from when Elwyn is 18 phases old, so 18 years old. So we learn in hindsight that Elwyn survived Netherin with Hadian and the dragon egg, and surprise, the dragon egg mama, Slatra. So the Doomquills do end up attacking her and Hadian and the dragon egg. In order to survive, Elwyn basically lures the baby mama down and is determined to tame her and to use her need to save her baby to save them all. And she ends up singing a tune, basically taming this dragon named Slatra. So she's the mama dragon that we learned about that's this gorgeous shade of metallic silver, okay? And her baby is what's in the egg. That's the egg that Hadian took. And that egg hatches, and the hatchling's name is Illum. But because of the trauma at the birth of the baby dragon, the baby has a gammy wing. She isn't able to fly properly, and that's why they also can't escape with this baby without the help of the mama. So now that's in hindsight. So they make their way back to their family, to the royal palace, and Hadian will never be able to walk again because he had broken bones and they fused together wrong. So essentially he's physically disabled. They raise Illum, his dragon, and Slatra becomes Eluan's dragon. And they become, bonded. Now she's 18, and we heard that, like, she's been revered, kind of. She's been revered for, like, saving her brother, for capturing the dragons and bringing them back and taming them. But she doesn't really care about that. She just wanted to save her brother. That was all she cared about. So now she's 18, and the dragons have been living with them at the palace. She's been working to try to fix the gammy wing for a loom because she wants her brother to be able to ride a dragon. That's all he's ever wanted to do, was to ride his own dragon. And now he can't walk, so this is very important to her, and they're able to fly together. So she rides Slatra, and Hadian's dragon is a loom. All is well. But now she's 18, and she needs to be betrothed to one of the kings. They need to form an alliance with the Vagars because it's mutually beneficial to them. And King Tyroth has asked for Eluan's hand, but he's known to be the worst king of them all, pretty monstrous. And she tells her dad, I do not want to marry King Tyroth. And he's like, don't worry, I would never betroth you to King Tyroth. But shortly after that, her entire family becomes sick and they all die. So she loses her brother and her parents all at once. But she talks about how her mother wore the diadem. She wore this diadem on her head and it sucked everything out of her. And that this is her family's, like, blood curse. They have inherited this gift of hearing the gods. This condition is passed on through their bloodline. When one person dies, when the mother dies, it's supposed to be passed on to the child. And it's their, like, duty to wear this diadem that keeps the creators under control, but at the expense of basically draining that human body. Like, it wears on them, it drains them, it basically kills them, but slowly, very slowly. And so now that her family is all gone, they've told her, it is now your responsibility to wear this diadem. It's like a aether stone that they wear on their head. This aether stone is what keeps Kalis under control, that god of the aether who attracts all the dragons to the sky. And they don't want that to keep happening because, again, it puts their world at risk, because every time a moon falls, it could destroy the world that they live in. So she is given the diadem and she becomes very sick. And while she's sick and weak, all the noble people, her, like, group of advisors, who are all like these old men, I'm presuming, have decided she's too young to get married, but she's also too weak to protect the kingdom right now. And they betroth her to Tyroth, Vagar, the one that she didn't want to be betrothed to. And they move her away to a safe house, basically, where she can be held safe until she's old enough for a coronation. And meanwhile, the kingdom is being run by the king. So that's kind of what's happening with Eluan in the past that we're seeing in between all of these scenes. So her family becomes sick and they all die. But in her journal entry, it says from an ingested poison. Her family was poisoned. And we're not sure yet by whom or what or how it happened. As a result, she's lost her entire family now. So now back to the dragon pit. She's waiting to die and she notices the queen in the stands talking to nobody. And the winds that have picked up are protecting her from the dragons coming in and plucking her up. And she realizes, I think that the queen is trying to save me. And the queen is like, she's crying and she looks like she recognizes Rave. And Rave is really confused, but she's just like, for some reason, the queen wants to save me. She doesn't understand why. And suddenly she's scooped up by a saber scythe into his mouth. So she's in this, like, dragon's mouth with all of its saliva and everything. And she's scooped up and flown away. And she's just, like, rumbling around inside of the saber scythe's mouth. And, like,